Hello gamers and welcome back. I'm Rob, of course, or Warjack if you want to call me by my in-game name. And we've got some more cards to cover. Holy crap, they just keep pumping these bad boys out. And every day they're releasing anywhere between like 5 to 15. So like I said, I'll do my best to continue keeping these updated. But like I said, it's kind of hard when they're releasing so many at one time. Nearing, with the expansion, I believe, next week. We're like less than 2 weeks away now, which is craziness. So the first card we're going to talk about is from the Hunter class. We've got Dusk, Haven Hunter, 3 mana, 2/5 stealth. Each turn this is in your hand, swap its attack and health. So obviously if it turns into a 5 attack 2 HP stealth minion for 3 mana, the 3 mana spot currently is taken up by like Eaglehorn Bow, Animal Companion, things of that nature. So overall, if you're playing against maybe like another aggressive base deck like a Paladin, this could pan out to be a pretty good card to play on turn 3 because you can deal with all their small creatures. And if you're playing against maybe a control deck, the 5 attack would be a little bit better for you. But overall, I don't know. I honestly don't really like the back and forth mechanic too much, and a lot of cards have them. I feel like, it's cool in a sense that it's different, but it's not cool in the sense that, like, how do you, like, I just can't think of a way to use that. Like, you don't know what your opponent, I mean, you can kind of know what your opponent's going to do, and I guess against certain classes and, depending on the deck you're playing, it could be an advantage, but I just don't see it being that big of an advantage to, like, base the entire minion. I don't know, we'll see. I just don't think the mechanic is, like, revolutionary, and it's, like, as cool as, like, the Echo mechanic, for example. The next card we're going to talk about is the Toxmonger, 4 mana, 2/4 poisonous. No, I lied. Whenever you play a 1-cost minion, give it poisonous. So obviously the first thing you think of is like Quest Hunter, right? Because it runs a whole bunch of 1 mana, 1-cost minions, especially cards like Alley Cat, Fiery Bat. Ooh, Argent Squire gives it poisonous, and it would have Divine Shield. Ooh. But you're paying a premium. I mean, a 4 mana 2/4. I mean, this card just, it costs a lot. It's a lot. It's a hefty price. I don't know. I don't think it's that good. I don't think it's that good at all. I think by the time, if, like, let's say you're playing Quest Hunter, right? Because obviously this is going to fit in some form of Quest Hunter or something like that. By turn 4, you've played a lot of your 1-drops, especially if your deck's filled with them. So you play this on 4, you don't play any 1-drops that turn, your opponent kills this. Or if you play this on like 5 or 6, you play this and then like a 1-drop, but you had to hold that 1-drop in your hand to combo it with this guy. So unless you're like bringing this guy out of your deck for free and then playing 1-drops, that's pretty annoying overall. But Hunters don't really have that mechanic, and he's not even a beast, even though he actually just is a beast. So I don't think he's that good at all. Nope, he's a niche. The next one though, super interesting, Racktrap. So 2 mana, secret, after your opponent plays 3 cards in a turn, summon a 6/6 rat, which is huge. It's a 2 mana 6/6, and like I said, if you're playing against any sort of combo based deck, like Priest, Rogue, some forms of like Paladin or Hunter, play multiple cards in one turn, especially given the relatively cheap cost of the minions and spells. This is definitely going to see some play sometimes. It's just the problem with this is more of like a mid-range hunter trap, because it's not going to, it doesn't directly impact the board immediately. Like cards like Explosive Trap, Wandering Monster, Freezing Trap, and Hat Trick, like most of the time those are going to trigger within 1 to 2 turns of being played, because your opponent will end up trying to attack you sometime. I mean, if there's nothing on the board, they're going to attack your face, or your opponent's going to be playing spells. That's just going to happen, but not always in the early game. Especially in the early game, is your opponent going to be playing 3 cards in a single turn for the most part. And Face Hunter, or with like quicker mid-range hunters, the game's over by turns, I want to say anywhere between 6 to 8 the longest, but normally 6 or before, even prior, sometimes by 3 it's been decided. So cards like this are leaning more towards the later stages of the game, when your opponent has more mana to be able to play more cards. So we actually might see, we haven't covered all the Hunter cards yet, but there's some really cool mid-range control, I wouldn't say control, but like strong mid to late game Hunter cards that look really interesting, and we're actually going to cover those next. So this kind of falls into line with the cards we're going to be covering now in regards to like longevity of games played by Hunters. So we have the Dire Frenzy, 4 mana, give a beast +3/+3, shuffle 3 copies of it into your deck with the 3/+3. So it has to be a beast, obviously. And then it's giving it 3+3, and then you're shuffling 3 more in your deck, which is like really valuable, right? Because you're playing cards like Huffer, you know, you play Huffer and then it ends up living and you can Dire Frenzy the Huffer, or you can Dire Frenzy Misha. You get a 3 mana 8/8 with Taunt. I lied. 3 mana 7/7 with Taunt. I was thinking 4+4. It was a 4/4 and it was going to give it 4/4, but it's a 3/3. It's not King Blessings of King, Rob. This is Dire Frenzy. It has a bear in the picture. So I think this card is really good. I think I'm going to be trying some form of like mid-range / control hunter soon, because cards like this are cool. It's not really the strongest. Like, this is not a win. This is not a comeback mechanic card. This is a basically outvalue, make huge dudes. Hopefully we draw into those dudes. But as we know, Hunter has a really difficult time with card draw. So being able to draw into the 3 copies of the buffed minion that's going to be in your deck, plus that minion needs to have, in my opinion, that it needs to have rush, it needs to have charge, it needs to have a battle cry, because if you just play a big minion, most of the time decks can get rid of big minions if they don't do something right away. You know, Mage, Warlock, Rogue, there's just a lot of cards in their arsenal that can single target, or even sometimes AoE cards down. And, you know, if you're paying a premium up front and then you can't even get the use out of the card, either because you can't draw it or it doesn't do anything as soon as it hits the board, you know, this card won't seem as good. But if there's anywhere between a 2 to 4 mana beast that has a good battle cry or charge or rush, it's gonna be good for Hunter. That is. The next card, again, pretty solid mid cost Hunter card. Wing Blast, deal 4 damage to a minion. If a minion died this turn, this costs 1. So it's potentially a 1 mana, deal 4 damage to a minion. I really like that they said minion and not just anything, because if this could go face, if a minion had died for 4 damage, that'd be fucking crazy. This card would be so broken if this could hit your face for 1 mana. So I'm glad it hits minions. Flanking Shot, though, is another 4-cost card that it does 3, and you summon a 3/3 from it, right? So I like that they're putting 2 really good 4 mana single target spells together, because you can either pick one or the other, so there's a little diversity there, or you can try to play both of them. And currently, as we know, Hunter, we think of turn 4, we think of Houndmaster. Now we think of Flanking Shot. But besides that, what is there on the turn 4? Normally a combo like a 2-drop and a hero power, or you Animal Companion off curve, you know, something like that. There's never like, if you don't have the Flanking or Houndmaster, like you use Flanking if you don't have a beast, and if you don't have a beast, or if you have a beast, you use Houndmaster, and of course if you don't have a beast, then you use the Flanking to try to get a beast to Houndmaster. So you've got a little bit more options on turn 4, and it's not a bad card at all. The next, we're going to be talking about a Druid card, Witching Hour, sorry. 3 mana, summon a random friendly beast that died this game. So obviously more so pushing the continuation of Blizzard pushing the taunt / beast druid, something they've done for like, I want to say since GVG, right? Maybe a set after that, but they've been pushing beast / taunt druid for so long, and it's just never, like beast druid at one time, we actually hit legend with beast druid a couple months ago, but that's beside the point. I think it's good if you only have high cost beasts, obviously, in your deck. If you need to be able to hit a high cost beast about 75% of the time to make this card useful, and then the other 25% of the time, it needs to be at least like a 3/4 or a 4/4 beast, because you don't want to have this card in your deck sitting in your hand and then you use it and then you summon a shitty minion. Like that, just you having dead cards in a druid hand is bad. I guess it's not too bad because you have so much draw in the deck, but regardless, definitely, if Beast Druid is a thing, this card will be a thing. If Beast Druid is not a thing, again, this card will not be very popular. Kind of just goes hand in hand. Pretty cool card. Right here, we got the Druid Legendary, Dusk Fallen Aviana. I always call her Anivia, so I'll continue to call her Anivia, and then those of you who get mad, Rob, this is not League of Legends! It's okay. you guys can rage out. The first card each player plays each turn costs 0. So your opponent is actually going to get the benefit of this card right away. So what's very tricky about this card is that we know, well, first of all, it's covered. Druid has a lot of high cost cards. We have, you know, Ultimate Infestation. We have the new Druid legendary card. We haven't actually gone over it, but it got posted like literally as I was building this video, and it's going to be covered in the next video. But it's a 10 mana 8/8. We'll cover it then. But Druids just in general have huge amounts of big minions, big spells. They got big things to do. So when you play this card and it lives, really good for you. Problem is, when you play this card and it goes to your opponent's turn, they're probably going to play the biggest fucking card in their hand, whether it be a minion or a spell. Then they're going to kill this card. So they're going to get the Dusk Fallen effect, then kill it, and you're not going to get shit. And you gave your, it's like a what do you call it? High risk, high reward. But the problem with the high risk part is not only are you risking it, you're giving your opponent something in return too. Like, here, have 0 mana costing shit. Now I'm going to hope you can't kill it. And then now I have to hope that I also have a high costing card in my hand. But for example, let's say you're playing against an aggressive base deck and all of the cards that they could possibly have in their hand is a max cost of maybe like 3 mana. That potentially isn't that big of a deal because, you know, they play a free 3 mana minion and then they play a 3 mana minion and they've loaded up the board. You know, they got 2 or 3 minions out. They can't kill her because she has 7 health. It goes to your turn and then you can turn 6, you know, Ultimate Infestation and then play naturally whatever you're going to play for the mana as well, which would be absolutely insane because your deck is built heavy and their deck is built not. I also can see this in Big Druid due to the fact, again, just the amount of, like, the ability to have this out on 5 and then play a giant fucking minion from your hand, plus, you know, use the remaining 6 mana or however much mana you have left over is really good. Also, you could play this card with the, what is it called? What's his name? He was played a shit ton at the beginning of this last expansion. Master Oakheart. It summons a 1, 2, and 3. So it can actually summon the Dusk Fallen Aviana for you. So a couple combos with Druid in regards to big decks right here. You know, high risk, high reward. I don't know if I would actually play it because it's really, really, really high risk. But again, the reward is pretty hefty. Or the reward is pretty substantial as well. Moving to Warlock. Warlock, actually, from looking at all of the cards, they've gotten a couple really good mid-range / demon / take damage synergy cards. Hey, Brody. All right, we have a special guest. Hey, buddy. He just got his haircut today. He just walked into the room. He's looking pretty dapper. How you doing, Brody boy? Yeah? You doing pretty good? Yeah? You just finished your bone? You want to say hi to Twitch? I'm just lying. You want to say hi to YouTube? Right there. What's that? Not over there. There you go. Hey, buddy. So we have the Blood Witch, 4 mana, 3/6 at the start of your turn, deal 1 damage to your hero. There's a couple other cards that we're going to cover shortly after this that synergize, again, with dealing damage to your hero. Right off the bat, we can think of the new Spellstone. Every time you deal damage to your hero, it upgrades it. So this combos very well with that. Also, cards like, I think it's called the Felguard. It might not be the Felguard, but he's the 4 mana, 4/4, and it says Battle Cry. If your health is, I believe, below 15, he gets +3/+3 in taunt. So it's basically a 4 mana 7/7 with taunt, and being able to, again, damage yourself. There are benefits through that, through upgrading your stuff or being able to have card abilities trigger. And then also, of course, cards we're going to cover right here. We got the Deathweb Spider. It says Battle Cry. If your hero took damage this turn, again, gain lifesteal. Lifesteal in regards to Warlock is very important because they take a shit ton of damage either through, you know, tapping the minions they're playing, a Noble Librarian they're taking damage. So the Warlock is like taking a huge amount of damage, taking relatively small to medium sized damage and then healing it back up through cards that synergized with initially taking that damage. So unfortunately, if you draw one half of your deck, like all the battle cries that require you to take damage and you don't actually take the damage, that's really bad. And if you draw all of your take the damage cards and you don't have any of your synergize with the take damage cards, you're kind of out of luck there. So it's a very fine line to be able to balance the two. I think this card is pretty good. I mean, overall, it's a 5 mana 4/6 of the stats. Like, it basically evens out to a 5 mana 5/5. I mean, if you just, you know, take one, add one. And so it's a basic 5 mana 5/5 with lifesteal. Would we play that? It's hard to say. It's not terrible because I would prefer it to have 6 life rather than if it was a 6/4, this card would be horrible. But because it's a 4/6, it's a little bit harder to kill. It has life steal. Healing for 4 is nice. It's kind of annoying because if it attacks twice or even once, you're healing for a substantial amount. So if a mid range, well, it's just slow to. I think it's too slow to go in zoo at the moment, depending on what else we get. And it's also a beast, which is weird. And I said demons earlier, I meant to say beast. So I don't really know why Warlock is getting a bunch of beasts. Like even the, what's her name? If she gets discarded from your hand, she was awful. She was a legendary. I mean, it's just bad. And then she was a beast too. So maybe we'll see some like Warlock demon beasts. I don't fucking know. But anyway, it's not terrible. It's not great. And, yeah. Dusk Bat, I think this card is really good. It's a 3 mana 2/4, again, another beast. Battlecry, if your hero took damage this turn, summon 2 1/1 bats. I think this card is really good. Like, really, really good. So you're basically getting a 3 mana 4/6 if you took any damage. And as we know, prior, a 4/6 is worth roughly 5 mana. So you're basically getting an extra 2 mana out of her if you've taken 1 damage. So comboing. And these, I believe, work with tapping, too. So turn 5, tap, Dusk Bat, you got a 3 mana, 4/6, basically, and you were able to draw a card. I think this card is really good. It'll definitely see play. Next card, Shammai, Epic Bog Shaper. Really cool picture. 7 mana, 4/8 elemental. All right, so high health, I wouldn't say very low attack, but fairly low attack. Whenever you cast a spell, draw a minion from your deck. Okay, so as we know, Shaman really doesn't have a ton of draw, and I think this is where this spawns from, right? Because we used to have a 2 mana overload 2 draw 2. We've got Mana Tide Totem. Besides that, what does Shaman have? We don't have a lot of card draw, right? So this kind of goes in with card draw, and especially in the later stages of the game, right? Because in the early stages, you can get away with no card draw because you just naturally some of the cards in your hand cost a relative. What the fuck's in my eyeball? Anyway, cards cost a lot, so you can kind of play a card every turn or play cards that generates other cards. But when you head towards the later stages of the game, it's sometimes you get to the point where each player is kind of top decking, and this happens very often in Magic. We've played some Magic online, and that seems to be once you get past that 6 to 8 mana mark, you're very, very low in cards in hand if your deck isn't a value generation machine, like a lot of the decks that we actually do play, because I hate running out of cards. But anyway, I think it's a card that Shaman needs. I don't know if it needed to be this exact like stat line, like a 7 mana 4/8. Like that's a hefty price to pay just to cast a spell and draw a minion from your deck. Like, yeah, like 7 mana 4/8. The stats are, I mean, they're just not terrible, but they're not great. The ability is good, but it's just like when you play this guy on curve, if you're playing him on curve, or even if you don't play on curve, max you're playing 1 minion or 1 spell. Even if you maybe you don't need to play a spell that turn, but you end up playing it just to get the minion, so you don't even get full value out of the spell, and then it draws the minion from your deck. And if you're playing a late game Shaman, then fatigue might be a real issue. So maybe drawing isn't so good, and you want more of like Battle Cry Discover cards, generate elementals and stuff like that. So you're not actually drawing cards out of your deck, you're generating cards other ways, which there's a couple cards that actually do that. I don't know if they're in this particular video, but I know another card came out that generated some cards for Shaman that weren't drawn from the deck. So I don't think Bog Shaper is that great, to be honest. Like, I don't think he's that great. I could be very wrong, but he doesn't strike me as something that's like overwhelming. I wouldn't like put him in the deck and be like, yeah, we're winning because of Bog Shaper, baby, let's go. Unless you're playing some sort of like combo Shaman, right, where you need to draw a minion from your deck and he kind of guarantees it. That's a situation where the card actually is very important then, right? Because let's say you're playing like a Malagos Shaman, while playing him in the deck basically means you have 2 Malagoses, because you play him in a spell and he generates a Malagos from your deck. So it's actually not too bad. Again, if you're playing a deck that revolves around, drawing specific minions. The next card we're going to talk about is Cathedral Gargoyle, the 2 mana 2/2 Battlecry. If you're holding a dragon, gain Taunt and Divine Shield. So really, really solid 2-drop if you're playing some form of dragon deck. The problem is there's Shielded Mini Bot, and that's a 2 mana 2/2 Divine Shield, like always. This requires you to have a dragon in your hand, and I guess he also gets Taunt, but Taunt's really not that important in the early game because who the fuck cares? So this is more of like, if you're playing a dragon deck, you'd play this over Shielded Minibot, plus Shielded Minibot isn't in standard mode, so maybe we'll see some dragon, you know, paladin back in the picture. At one time, we actually did see a little bit of dragon paladin. It was more of a meme deck than anything. Actually, at one time, I was playing a beast dragon murloc control paladin deck, and that was real fun. That was real fun. Those were the days. I think we hit top 200 legend with that dragon beast murloc control paladin. I think it was a Reno. I lied. It was a Reno dragon murloc beast control paladin. That's what we were playing. We hit like top 200 legend with it. It was super fun. So many ragers, man. Made so many people mad, but yo boy. Anyway, Deadly Arsenal, 6 mana warrior spell. What do we got going on? Reveal a weapon from your deck, deal its attack to all minions. So currently, warriors don't really play a whole lot of high value weapons. I can never remember the name of it. It's always at the top of my head. It's a 4 mana 2/2 weapon. Blade something. I don't fucking know. I don't play warrior anymore. RIP Warrior 2018. Anyway, we might see Gorehowl come back in the picture, you know, ripping a Gorehowl, deal 7 to everything on the board. This also is right behind Brawl. Brawl is currently one of the only, like, large-scale AoEs that Warriors have for any size minion. You know, if you look at, like, Warlock, they have Nether. Priests have Dragonfire Potion, not anymore, but Psychic Scream. So there's, like, a lot of ways that some of the other classes can deal with minions. Warrior, again, Brawl is the only one. They get a new one, but it requires you to have some form of weapons. So, it's hard to say. Obviously, you don't play this in Pirate Warrior. I mean, Pirate Warrior just goes face all the time. So this goes into some kind of, like, control. And it also does damage to all minions, not just your opponent's minions. So if you've got a decent-sized minion on the board and your opponent has a bunch of small ones and you have a Gorehowl in your deck, you're going to end up probably killing your own minions and overkilling your opponent's minions. And you never play a 6 mana deal 2 to everything, because that's fucking horrible if you only have low-cost minions in your deck. So I really don't see where this fits in to where you'd really need it, unless they release a relatively medium to large size, at least 2 of them, warrior weapons that do something fairly good in order to even play them in the first place. And then also a meta where this is actually a card that you'd want to play on turn 6, because I can imagine this being found in maybe like a big warrior deck, right? And it might have some big weapons in there. But the problem with that is, first, you have to live long enough to get there. And then second, when you use this card, you're going to end up killing your own big minions because you got the big weapons in your deck. And if you have no more weapons in your deck, this card absolutely does nothing. If you draw your weapons early on, this literally does nothing for you. Unless there's a weapon that, when it death rattle, return this like weapon to your deck. And then you don't need Dead Man's Hand because you automatically have a weapon that you keep drawing. So they might make like a 3 or 4 attack weapon that returns to your deck. Maybe. I don't know. But I think this is really bad if that card doesn't exist. If there's no way to guarantee you're going to have weapons in your deck in the late game, that card is absolutely trash. Talking about weapons, Woodcutter's Axe, 2 mana, 2/2. Not bad. Death Rattle, give a random friendly minion with Rush +2/+1. Really good. This is a good card. I think any sort of tempo / aggro / even maybe some mid-range control warrior might actually just play this card. It's just good. 2 mana, 2/2. Not the best kind of weapon, but solid. And then, you know, giving a minion +2/+1 off its death rattle is that's good. It's a good card. It'll see play 100%. Spectral Cutlass, 4 mana, 2/2 rogue weapon, lifesteal. Whenever you play a card from another class, gain 1 durability. In my opinion, this looks like shit. This just looks like shit. Why would I play that when Kingsbane is a card? You know what I mean? Like, why would I play this? It already has built-in lifesteal. So I guess technically you could, like, play 2 of these instead of a Kingsbane, and then just go from there, and you don't have to play Leeching Poison anymore. And then you play, like, a Steel Pirate Rogue deck. But, I mean, it's a pretty hefty price to pay. I don't know, maybe. Maybe you could get away with, like, a Steel Pirate random Rogue deck that runs this instead of Kingsbane. But I still think until Kingsbane is rotated, this won't see play. Maybe once Kingsbane isn't in the picture, this will see play, but it'll always be in the picture because they're in the same block. So Kingsbane and this card will always be in the same block, which means I don't see this way. I don't think this will ever see play. And it's an epic. Good job, Blizzard. Good fucking job. Next card. Holy Water. They're like, holy shit. 5 mana. Deal 4 damage to a minion. If it kills it, add a copy of it to your hand. Card's really good. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but cards that deal damage and then generate value are good. Firelands Portal, good. Entomb, good. Holy Water, holy shit, this is good. And plus the picture looks really cool too. This reminds me of like Yu-Gi-Oh artwork. Really cool picture. I like the card. And it's good. Doll Master Dorian. 5 mana, 2/6. Whenever you draw a minion, summon a 1/1 copy of it. So originally a couple of buddies of mine said, hey Rob, what do you think about this card in potentially like a big priest, right? And you may think it actually fits well into big priest because you're like, you draw, one of your bigger minions, you have this out, you generate a 1/1, and then you can Eternal Servitude, you can use Spellstone. But the problem is the big priest decks, or even the big decks in general, I should say specifically big priest decks, you only run like 5 minions in the deck max, maybe 6 with Barnes or something, right? But Barnes is leaving, so 5 or 6. The chances of you drawing a minion, chances of you playing this card living, and then you drawing one of those 5 minions is so low. Like, it's not even worth mentioning. Like, it's just not going to happen. And if it does, it's very uncommon, right? So whenever I think of summoning 1/1 minions, you kind of have to associate with like what decks do well with having a lot of 1/1 minions out, and what 1/1 minions are most powerful that would want to do something, right? So you look at Death Rattle, being able to summon like 1/1 Death Rattle minions that have powerful effects when they die, minions that maybe have like poisonous, or token decks that have a lot of like small minions, but you can buff them up, such as like token Druid. So we may actually see some form, or also decks like Shaman that benefit from large scale little minions, because not only they may have Death Rattle, you can Bloodlust. So those 1/1 minions actually represent 4 damage each if you have Bloodlust. So I think this might go into some form of like token, buff, aggro, maybe even maybe a control Death Rattle, or maybe a token Death Rattle deck. I mean, that's just my first impression. Again, it's hard to say, but that's normally when 1/1s get generated. That's what happens. Also, you could think about this Inquest Rogue. So you'd play this guy, he would turn into a 5/5. So he's a 5 mana 5/5, and every time you draw a card, which is mostly going to be a minion, you're going to make a 5/5 instead of a 1/1, because all the stuff is a 5/5, right? So you're basically getting a free 5/5 at the beginning of every turn. And as we know, there's cards in rogue decks that we can bounce back to our hand that have powerful battle cries. So let's say this rips like a Brewmaster or a Stone Tusk Spore off the top. And not only does it have charge, you can Shadow Step that card back to your hand and maybe get some more value. So I think there's going to be whatever deck this fits into. If it pulls out whatever the fuck it needs to pull out, it's going to be crazy. Like, I just feel like if that card sticks to the board for longer than 2 turns in the deck that it's designed to be in, it's like basically having like a Ysera and stuff down. It just generates stupid value. The next card we're going to talk about is the Royal Guard. It's a 3 attack, 8 HP, Divine Shield, Rush. Each turn this is in your hand, swap its attack and health. Again, one of those cards. So I think they made it a 3/8 first, because let's say if you free from Ambered and you got this as an 8/3 with Rush and Divine Shield, it's going to basically kill whatever the hell it wants. Right? And it can deal 8 damage face if you got it from free from Amber, right? Even though it has Rush, the fact that you free from Ambered it basically counts as charge, very similar to the says when you play this card, it can attack minions right away, unless they took that out and specifically. And they added this because of the mechanic where you could attack face with cards not meant to attack face with if you free from Ambered them or pulled them out of your deck, like the Devil Sword guy. So we'll have to see. But I'm not really impressed. It's kind of straightforward. It's a 3/8 with Divine Shield and Rush, and it's going to do big things. If it has a 8/3, you kill some shit, and if it's a 3/8, it's still not bad, but, power, what is it called? Shadow Word Pain. 2 mana, get rid of this card. Lil. The next card's actually, I think, going to make Beast Druid could potentially push it a little bit forward, a little bit more than what it needs to be, or what it currently is. It's the 5 mana 3/12 Beast Taunt, and Battlecry, lose 1 health for each card in your opponent's hand. So again, if your opponent's playing some form of control deck, let's say they have 6 to 8 cards in their hand, this is going to be like a 3/6 at 3/4. But the important part is this being brought back with cards like a little spider dude that brings back all your taunts, Hadron Ox. But Hadron Ox is rotating, isn't he? Because he came out in I don't want to say he came out in Mean Streets. I don't know. He was either a Mean Streets card or an Old Gods card. So he actually may be seeing rotate. So what's going to bring back taunts? I don't know. Yeah, he was. I'm pretty sure he's a Mean Streets cards because I remember seeing Hadron Ox with Jades. So we're losing Hadron Ox. We're getting Witchwood Grizzly. So you could just summon this with the Druid card, you know, summon a beast that died this game. And if you summon a 3/12, holy shit. A 3 mana, summon a 3/12 with taunt. Seems good. Obviously, any taunt deck, or, you know, getting this off Stonehill Defender and your opponent's an aggro deck and, it, you know, they only have 3 cards in their hand. It's a 3/9 for 5 mana. Hello, how you doing? Goodbye. 2 mana, 1/4 spell shifter, spell damage +1 each turn. This is in your hand. Swap its attack and health. Again, just one of those cards that maybe sometimes it works out, maybe sometimes it doesn't. A 2 mana 4/1 with +1 spell damage is kind of threatening, to be honest. Maybe enough to play it in a tempo mage. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's say your opponent's a rogue and they have to use a dagger to take 4 damage to kill a minion. You basically, not only maybe you comboed this with a spell to deal that +1 spell damage, but you did a 2 mana deal 4 damage, which is slightly better than a Frostbolt if you didn't need the freeze. So that's actually not too shabby. It's not a terrible 2-drop. Not the best 2-drop, but not a terrible 2-drop. Plus, let's say random 2-drop effects, you generate a 1/4 that gives +1 spell damage. That's actually not too bad either. So it's not a bad, like, evolve target. Instead of getting like Novice Engineers, a 1/1 that does nothing. Swift Messenger, a 4 mana 2/6 rush. Each turn this is in your hand. Swap its attack and health. Again, doing kind of like the same thing. I'm glad that they made these cards rush instead of like charge and shit, because the problem with these is Interfire Priest. Sorry about that, guys. I'm trying to think of where these cards fit into, because there's going to be some form of rush deck and it's going to do some crazy shit, but I just can't wrap my head around it right now. I just don't see where these cards are absolutely like that good. Some of the rush cards are pretty good, like the Warrior one, for example, is very good. But cards like this, like, I just don't see it. Witch's Cauldron, this is, again, one of the cards that I was talking about that synergizes well with the Bog guy is the 3 mana 0/4. After a friendly minion dies, add a random shaman spell to your hand. Obviously, the shaman spells combo with the get minions from your deck. But really, do you want to play Witch's fucking Cauldron to, you know, play some fucking, have your minions die? So you play Cauldron, then you play like Volcano, you kill 3 of your minions, you know, you get 3 random shaman spells, then you play the Bog dude, and you play, you know, 2 spells, a 1 and a 2 on 10, you get 2 minions from your deck, and you have a 4/8 on the board that's an elemental. I mean, that's just a really high price to pay for, like, things that other cards do anyway, like Ultimate Infestation. Like, you draw 5 cards, you gain 5 armors, you summon a minion. Like, that does everything that does, and this requires you to have like 4 cards. They all have to draw in the right order, and, you know, other cards just do like the same thing but better. So yeah, this might, obviously, coming off of random effects, this could be useful sometimes, you know. But do I think this card is actually going to see play in a deck? I don't know. Maybe Interfire Priest, it turns into a 3 mana 4/4, and then if a minion dies, you get a free shaman spell. Right? So you could play this and, like, I mean, maybe we might see like a, no, we wouldn't see that because Kazak is leaving. I was thinking like a 1 of Interfire Priest, but you don't need, you know, the double Interfire anymore because of the Witch or the Lady in White. So you could play like a bunch of cool cards, but without Kazakis and Raza, it really doesn't make sense to do that right now. But maybe we'll see cards like that. I mean, it's an interesting effect. It's cool. And I feel like if this card was statted a little bit differently, it'd be really, really good. The effect of it is very powerful, though. Like, after a friendly minion dies, add a random shaman card to your hand. We look at cards like, what is his name? A Cult Master, right? It's a 4 mana 4/2. After a friendly minion dies, you draw a card, and we know how good that can be. You know, with Unleash the Hounds, it was actually played in Jade Rogue in the early stages for card draw, because, you know, Rogue has a very hard time drawing cards if you're not playing Miracle. Just an interesting card. We'll see where it goes. It's not terrible, but I don't think it's that powerful, like, as is, unless there's something that opens up to make this pretty good. The only thing I can think of is giving it 4 attack, and then it's pretty annoying to deal with, because then they have to kill this first before killing your other minions. And if they can't actually kill this because it's decently statted, maybe you get And then you have other effects like, you know, cards that buff this, so that's even more annoying, because then do you kill the card that's buffed and not kill the card that's buffing that card, or you kill the card that's giving the buffs, but then they generate, you know, random shaman cards from the cards giving the buffs to the Cauldron. It's like, which one do you kill? They're both evil. Anyway, we've got a lot more cards to cover. I'm going to start putting together our episode 5 of this already. I mean, they just keep pumping out cards, like I said earlier. So with that, thanks for watching. Let me know if I missed out on anything, or if you want to leave your feedback on any of the cards that I've explained that's something I didn't touch on. I'm always interested and enjoy reading your guys' comments about some of these new cards. So with that, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Of course, I'm Robert Warshak, and happy whatever the hell day it is.